Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I'm Mandy Albert, and this is not Your Movie Rocks. This is a special episode inserted into the calendar because, good news, everybody, we are bringing back Spoiler Alert from its old days. And with me to resuscitate Spoiler Alert are our old friends Brian Fowler and Caleb Wimble. Brian, Caleb, how you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Me too, yeah. Good weekend, ready for the new one, and to talk about a pretty good movie, I think is my hot take off the presses here. I mean, it's been over a week since all of us saw it, I think, at this point, right? So we've had time to ruminate a little bit.
Indeed.
We should probably introduce what movie we're talking about.
I mean, maybe, I guess. Or we could just make them all guess, but no, we won't do that. So we decided to bring back Spoiler Alert because if you listen to the September preview, you might recall that there was a movie that all three of us were pretty darn excited about. And then we all saw it, and we decided that we were still really excited about it to the point where we needed to record a podcast of ourselves talking about it. And so you get to reap the fruits of some variety.
Or
Hope you enjoy.
The raw meat stuffed in a Ziploc in your pocket, or some tinfoil, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to reap something is the point. All right, so what's the movie we're talking about?
That would be The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence, based on the Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman novel of the same name.
Okay, so for anybody who didn't listen to us rant and roar on the September preview, what are our prior relationships to The Long Walk and its source material?
Let's see. I first read The Long Walk in the waiting room of the Philadelphia courthouse jury selection area, where they have a pretty robust little paperback library going in. And I spent the full day there, and then eventually was called to serve on that jury. So I did read most of The Long Walk at that time, but realized I had not actually finished it when the other week, or the other month at this point, I reread the book again. And actually got the ending this time, which I think the ending of the book and the movie will be a strong topic of conversation here. I'd say my general relationship from whenever, I guess, 13 years ago and this year is that I thought it was one of the best, tightest, and grittiest little Stephen King novels I had read at that point, and I still think that's true. I think it's probably high on the list of, like, short introduction to Stephen King books I would recommend somebody. And I think it's also, if I'm not mistaken, one of the very first things he wrote, one of his early trunk novels as a college student, possibly. Is that right? You two are deeper in the weeds on this than me.
Yes, according to him, it was his first full-length novel, and then he put it in a drawer for a little while, and when he decided to be Richard Bachman, he dug it back out of the drawer.
Right, when he wanted to prove to himself and the world that he could be just as successful under a different name and publishing label, and that turned out to be not the case commercially at first, necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know if it went long enough for him to really answer that question, because I think there was only about 6 years between the first Bachman book and it being broken open, so maybe Richard Bachman would have become a big literary star,
but not like the author of Carrie, who overnight became, global airport sensation.
Yeah, and anyway, then Brian, how about you?
I think I first read the book in high school. I know I first read it in a copy of my friend Gavin lent me a copy of the Bachman books, which had the first 4 books he published under that name: Rage, The Long Walk, The Running Man, and Roadwork.
Oh, so you're one of, like, the 16 people in the world who has read Rage?
I have read Rage.
I'm unfortunately in that camp as well.
Lucky you.
It is not great, but we're not here to talk about Rage being not great.
But it is interesting how many of those same themes he explores in The Long Walk, and so much more effectively.
And
very true.
I am of the opinion it is one of, easily in my top 5 Stephen King books, maybe as high as 3rd on my list. I also think it's probably the easiest read of any book in his catalog. It is not very long. It's very long for a novella, but not very long for a novel, depending on which one you want to credit it as. It's not metaphysical. It's not. It doesn't shit the bed at the end of the book like many of his books tend to do.
That's because all
So
the
yeah, it
shitting
is
gets
one of my
taken care
favorite
of
King
prior to
books.
that along the road.
We will probably get into some scatological
Thank you.
discussion here.
Yes, so that's 3 for 3 of us who would put this. In my case, I think this is probably my favorite Stephen King. Actually, no, not probably. This is my favorite Stephen King. The only one that approaches it is The Green Mile, and this one has to give The Green Mile the edge just because The Green Mile is a little bit too long. It may, in fact, be my favorite popular novel. It is definitely the novel that I have read the most times. I would estimate my long walk count somewhere over 24 at this point. And even though I have read it over 24 times, every time I pick it up, I find something new in it.
That's really interesting.
And just like, despite the fact that it's an incredibly bleak story, like Stephen King's Richard Bachman persona is kind of famous in part because of his own promotion for being like Stephen King's dark half. Like these are the stories that were too angry, too aggressive, too ragey, so to speak, to publish under the Stephen King brand name. And so he brought them out under his George Stark-like Richard Bachman persona. So it's very bleak. And despite that, it's incredibly easy reading for the most part and very rereadable. Like, it will make you feel bad, but it's a kind of feeling bad that you kind of crave from a certain type of book.
Yeah, I think I've read it probably 6 or 7 times. So not nearly as many as Mandy, but over the course of like 25-ish years, I guess I read it every 4 or 5 years.
That's very interesting, Mandy, that your two favorite books of his are The Long Walk on one hand and The Green Mile on the other, because they are almost the polar opposites in terms of that meanness and bleakness of The Long Walk versus Green Mile. I think maybe King at like his and I love The Green Mile, but maybe him at his most saccharine, people would say, and his most getting into the feelings. Like there's some dark stuff that happens in there, but yeah, the book and the movie I think of as being like full of hope and light and spirituality of a kind in the midst of all that, versus what we get in The Long Walk, which is
they're definitely much more towards the Shawshank Redemption end of the spectrum there. And The Long Walk does not exist in the same fold of space-time as the Shawshank Redemption in terms of its feelings. So they finally made a movie out of it. And this movie had been in the works for like how many decades at this point?
43 years? 45.
Almost, yeah, like over 4. I think Romero was first attached sometime in the 80s. I know that. So we are into the, 40-year range here. I think I looked that up before we did the September preview, but
it was 1988 according to the Wikipedia. And then, but apparently by 2007 was when Frank Darabont was attached to it, for which seems like the most natural of all people for Stephen King adaptations.
That's the first that I remember hearing that the movie was in the works, which turned out to be the world's biggest.
I still would really like to see the Frank Darabont cut. As much as I enjoyed this movie, that would be like Frank Darabont with a 2007 cast. That would have been an interesting, different animal in some ways.
That would have been interesting.
I wonder how he would have ended it. Because he did when he made Shawshank, he put a much happier ending on the movie than the book has. And when he did The Mist, he put the bleakest ending.
God.
Onto
when
it.
He did When he did The Green
ahead.
Mile, he removed the really dark stuff from the ending, but he kept the kind of traditional sad stuff without going quite as deep into the bleakness as King does at the very end of The Green Mile. So Darabont has covered the whole spectrum of endings there.
So I don't know which direction he would have gone that, but anyway, we're not here to talk about The Green Mile.
I was going to say, we're somehow here to talk about every Stephen King movie.
They're all in conversation, right?
The Long Walk.
Intertextual.
They are, it's true. And
Just
Stephen
different
King
levels
is
of the
having a
Dark Tower.
year right now. Yeah.
Yes, he is. 4 movies and 2 TV shows this year, I believe. Which is, even for somebody as prolifically adapted as him, that's a lot in 1 year.
Yeah.
That is. And we're going to talk about this one. In case
Yes.
it was not clear from the name spoiler alert, just so that we get no complaints, this is a completely spoiler zone discussion of the movie. So if you have not yet seen The Long Walk and you are planning to, you should hit the pause button and go see it and then come back and listen to us talk about it.
Can I add one thing to that? Yeah, I would add one thing to that.
Mhm.
We're going to spoil the book too, and there are some pretty fundamental differences, which is going to be a lot of what we talk about. So, if you want to read the book or see the movie without knowing what happens,
and you
this
should.
is your time to. You should. The book is great and the movie's good.
Yeah.
This is your time. This is your time to stop the podcast and come back
so
later.
I guess that's our first question. What'd we think of this movie we were all very much anticipating?
I find it interesting. If I'm not mistaken, all 3 of us landed at 3.5
Oh, that's
stars.
great.
I think we did. I'm not sure if they were quite the same 3.5 stars, but we did all land at 3.5 stars.
So I guess just going by that, we all thought it was good, but not great. Pretty good. But there's things I liked about it a lot. The cast, for the most part, is fantastic. The young actors,
young for a relative value of young in some cases.
I think,
yeah. But that's Hollywood.
Well, not Mark Hamill in that case. So, but yeah, I thought the cast was extremely good, which I'm sure we'll get into them.
They're still young.
I think we'll get into, specifics on the cast as we go on here.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to just talk about the cast? We can talk about the stuff that made us happy, and I think the cast probably made all of us happy.
Do we want to summarize the story in brief real first for whatever weirdos who are listening to this who don't mind spoilers but haven't seen the movie or read the book yet? Which I know there will be some, because I do that with podcasts all the time.
No, that's a fine idea, just in case. And they're like, I am among people who read the Wikipedia summaries of movies before they go to see them. So those are my people if you're out here. So just for you, the basic premise of The Long Walk, the novel, and then we can talk about how the movie changed it, because there are some fairly significant changes to, I guess not the premise, but to the structure of the premise, is that it is set very vaguely in an alternate history United States where the government is now run by a shadowy organization called the Squads that is led by a shadowy figure called the Major. I think at one point a change is referred to, after which the Squads took over. And the national pastime in this alternate universe, the United States, is a big old walking contest called The Long Walk, where 100 teenage boys are selected from, I believe it is stated, thousands of applicants every year. And they start at the Maine Canada border, and they walk until there's only one of them left. And if you ever fall below the minimum required speed, or you stumble, or you stop, or you leave the road, you are warned. And if you get 3 warnings, you are out of the walk. And the book is deliberately cagey at first about what this means, though if you know what you're getting into, it is not that difficult to guess that being out of the walk means that you are unceremoniously gunned down by the members of the Squads who are accompanying you on the long walk. And so, yep, you get your ticket. Our protagonist is Ray Garrity, who is from Maine. He's the hometown boy, and he is one of the, unsurprisingly, participants in whatever year's long walk this is. And we really do just follow him and the buddies that he makes on the walk down the road as they walk and they become tired, and they walk and they become even more tired, and they walk some more, and they start to lose their grip on reality a little bit, and there's a lot of pondering of the possible meanings of life and death and existence and love and all kinds of other things, while they attempt to maintain their grasp on reality and also the things that have meaning to them. And I'll save the ending for later when we talk about the endings.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Did
And
I get
then
pretty much
the big
everything?
highlights.
I think so, yeah. The movie, as you mentioned, the movie makes some fundamental changes. I think the one to start with is the one that I understand was actually King's own request, suggestion, and is the smartest change they could have possibly made from the
You talking
book to the
about the
movie,
speed
which
limit?
is I'm talking about the speed limit. In the novel, it is 4 miles an hour they have to maintain. And if you drop below 4 miles an hour for, I believe it's 10 seconds, you get the warning.
30 seconds, I think, is in the book. But still, Steven,
Oh, is
that's a
it 30
power
seconds?
walk.
Yeah, that's borderline
Yeah.
jogging. And they dropped it to 3 for the movie, which, one, just makes more sense.
That's like
Two,
an easy stroll.
yeah. Two, it makes it so that the characters can actually have these conversations. Because if they were going 4 miles an hour, by the end of the first half hour, conversations are going to be like, Marty, how are you doing?
It also
You know. So I think that is the
and
best change straight off.
that change,
Easiest, simplest, and
along with
best.
the cutting in half of the number of walkers from 100 to 50, means that they're able to escape like the biggest logistical problem of the story when you read it, which is one, the walkers are very far spread apart in the book. Like you get the sense that there are these multiple groups and columns at such a great distance they can't always see one another clearly, and they're they have the military convoy following them on either side, ready to give them their tickets at any time. But in the book, people are constantly dropping back to go talk to people in other groups, and it is not clear how that is possible without getting warnings anytime you do so, unless unless the
Unless they were
whole
going
group,
well over
then the
the
multiple
speed.
groups were running at that given point. How are these characters always falling back to go chat with others? And the movie is just like, well, there's so few of them that they're all in like one big cluster, basically, and we don't have to deal with this mental gymnastics. Mandy, it looks like you might have an answer.
No,
There's a there's a point early in the book where there's like a little group that's leading the walk for most of it. It's like those two brothers from Arizona, and then a character named Scram who gets cut from the movie. And at one point it's said that like the word has come back that they're doing like 8 or 9 miles an hour. And that's the point where I was like, Steven, are we clear on what walking is? Are we clear on how miles work? Like, you're a car guy. Surely you have some sense of how fast this is, but apparently not. So we removed all of those concerns from the movie. And like, yeah, I was fine with cutting the number of walkers in half because it just, like you said, it avoided a lot of the logistical problems. And it also just meant that the shots weren't nearly so crowded. And it meant also that they could cut down on the number a lot faster.
Oh, and they can make it one from each state, which is a big change from the book, right? Rather than it being,
that's what I was going to get to. Was that is to me kind of, I called this in a text to Mandy right after I saw the movie, the Hunger Gamesification of
Yeah.
the movie, which Francis Lawrence directed 4 out of the 5 Hunger Games movies now, but making it be one from each state, which also kind of is a change from the book, because in the book there's explicitly 51 states, although it never says what the 51st state is. There is it does add a very Hunger Games feel to it, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. It's just, it's interesting to me because when I read the Hunger Games, it reminded me a lot of The Long Walk. So it's interesting to see the influence kind of going in a circle.
Yeah. I did not love the change to how the walkers were selected. And not just that it was one from each state, but that it sounded like it was almost entirely done by lottery. Whereas in the book, the long walk is something that you have to qualify for. Like there's a test that you have to take in order to be considered for the lottery.
Right.
And it's considered an honor to even pass the test. So there's like an element of achievement to getting into the long walk that's absent from the movie, where it's just like these random guys got their names drawn out of a hat that, they submitted their names to voluntarily, but it's like in the Hunger Games where it's not actually voluntary because everybody around you is doing it.
Also, can't remember which character is in the book. Maybe Arthur, who basically said he lied on everything on his application, made a lot of jokes.
That was Abraham, who was cut from the movie.
That's Abraham,
yeah.
who's not in the movie. Yes, Abraham gets cut, which is something I want to talk about when we get much closer to the end of the movie. But yeah, about how the whole time he thought he was pulling one on the major, tweaking his nose, right up until he started walking.
Yep.
basically.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, cuts have to be made, and that's not a terribly cinematic scene, so I can't say that I'm sad that it got cut. But it is a moment from the book that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is something you and I had talked about too, Mandy, is one of the elements of the book that is very prevalent, that's not hardly at all in the movie, is the book is
Yeah,
deeply
yeah.
psychosexual.
Extremely.
And there is almost none of that made it onto the screen, other than some homophobic jokes about Ray, and we haven't even brought up Pete yet, but
Yeah, we'll get to Pete. I do, like, if they were gonna cut some of it, I'm glad that they cut all of it. Because then, if it's just not going to be a component of your story, then okay, it's not a component of your story. There were, like, a couple of really random little bits of it that they kept, like the moment where McVries says something about being exceptionally horny on this first day of the walk.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's,
Right.
like, one of the very few moments where it kind of took me out of the movie, because even the actors seemed a little bit confused about why they were having this conversation.
It does bother me that we get all of that taken from, like, Ray, I guess, getting into, well, we're going to be doing book and movie differences the entire time, I suppose, but, like, almost every character on this walk has some, not necessarily, sometimes deep, dark secret, but they have an inner, very Freudian source, whether it's a trauma or parental experience. Like, each character is a puzzle box that Garrity gets to gradually unlock over the course of the walk as he has these conversations, and in moments of extreme emotional crisis, you find out what is the thing that makes this person tick. Like, what are their core memories, in the inside out sense. And you often, it says they start to get delirious. Some of them will just tell you straight up. We get very different deep dark secret from McVries, from Peter McVries in the book, and also Ray Garrity's is changed so completely for what I can see as Hollywood main character writing reasons. But it does annoy me in the psychosexual thing that one of the only gay or bi Stephen King characters of any prominence from this era, and certainly the only main character I can think of for the vast majority of his books that I've read, that gets cut completely along with all the rest of the sexual content, because Ray Garrity's core memory in the book is this experience experimenting with another boy when he was a lot younger, and them both having these feelings for each other, and his, I think, mother discovering him in the sandbox when they are doing this, and it becomes this, like storms away with him, castrating him all night. Your father can't know about this. It becomes this deeply defining experience for him, and the fact that he is a closet case, like so many, if not all, 18-year-olds in vaguely late 1960s, 1970s alternate America that were in here, because we do get the sense this society is culturally like very close to the America of that time, but even a little nastier and more repressed.
Yeah.
And then it's made complicated by the fact that throughout the book he has what sounds like a fairly serious girlfriend. And he's clearly a little bit torn on his feelings for her, and, for lack of a better word, against her. And she is completely cut from the movie. Apparently that was one of the first stripping down decisions that they made, was cutting Jan entirely from the story.
Right, like he broke up with her before the walk in the movie, I believe is what he says.
Okay, so cutting Jen and cutting all the crowds until sort of the very last scene, like no
crowds.
This is
That
America's.
feels like a budget
It does.
choice.
It's such a budget choice. I think cutting the number of the walkers is too. But I get that, on $20 million, when you also have to pay Mark Hamill, although I don't know how much you have to pay Mark Hamill, and then all these up and coming actors for the most part. That changes the tone of the movie so much. Not to have the big brass bands, the all rah. These are rallies. This is the biggest event of the year. This is Independence Day, and every football game rolled in.
It's like the Olympics torch carrying parade, but much
at every
longer.
town, and the interactions with the people there, the frenetic audiences, and some of the
and the constant cheering for Ray because he's the hometown boy. Here it doesn't matter at all, except for that one little scene that they kept in with the girl with the sign early
the sad
on,
little sign
that he's the hometown boy. The saddest little sign.
It also made, I can't remember which character it is, but the character who tries to run away fairly early on. Tries to run into a store or something in the movie. In the book, the kid didn't look like a complete idiot because he tried to run into the crowd and hide.
Yeah.
Whereas in
That
the
was, what was his name? Percy. His name was
Percy,
Percy.
that's right, because his mom keeps showing up in the book.
I think they kind of combined Percy with Curly, because in the book, Percy is the one where they keep commenting on how young he
Right.
looks.
But yeah, they did a lot of like taking elements from characters who were caught and putting them on other characters in this as well.
Which is good if you're going to cut
yeah,
the
it's just like-
characters, at least give them a little more.
Particularly, yeah. Particularly, we mentioned, or Mandy mentioned, Scram earlier, who is a character I really like in the book,
Me too.
who probably wasn't necessary for the movie, but they kind of took most of his character and cut him out. But they gave like his strength and size to Stebbins, and then one of
They also gave
the
his cold
weird-
to Stebbins.
Oh.
and his cold, yes, his cold. But then in what I thought was one of the weirdest decisions, they gave his backstory of being the only married man in the walk to Hank Olsen.
That was a very weird choice.
And they didn't reveal it till after Hank was dead, which made it not even have that much of an impact on the story. It's like, I don't know why they didn't just leave that part on the cutting room floor completely.
Yeah. So because I worry that we're getting a little bit scattered with ourselves with the characters,
Indeed we
maybe we
are.
could just go through, like, so we've talked about Ray, we've mentioned a couple of the others. If we could just kind of go through the name characters who
That's
actually do
probably a
show
good
up in the
idea.
movie. So we've got Ray, and then we've got Pete, who we've mentioned a couple of times. Pete is played by David Johnson, 31-year-old
well.
teenager David Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care by about 10 minutes into
No.
the movie.
Oh,
His
no, neither did I.
performance is so good in this movie. I would not be opposed to him getting a Best Supporting Actor nomination.
Oh, not in the slightest. So we've got him. He's Ray's best friend on the walk in both the book and the movie. Though their relationship, for various, again, psychosexual reasons, is a lot more complicated in the book because the two of them are not quite sure how they feel about each other,
Yeah.
I would say is a fair
And-
assessment of it. And
Ray
them
is
exploring
definitely-
how they feel
yeah.
about each other is a big part of their relationship through these 5 days.
Ray is definitely not sure how he feels about Pete.
Yep.
I'm not
I think
honestly
Pete's a
sure
little
in the
more
book
sure.
if Pete's not sure or if he just doesn't want to say it out
Yeah.
loud, especially while Ray is unsure and they're going to die anyway.
And movie Pete, I think, is pretty clear early on when they're asking about the girlfriends to each other, and I forget if it's Ray or one of the others who asked Pete McVeigh, "Oh, you know, do you have a girl?" Or it is Ray, because he looks at him and he gives him like a, "Wait, you didn't get it yet?" Kind of
Gives him a shit-eating
look.
grin, is
No,
like,
no, I
"No,
don't
I
have a
don't."
girl. Right? Yeah. And but by the same token, in the movie later on, like towards the end, even there's all these scenes that you can interpret along the lines of that and of the book, but the movie makes clear to throw in the brother thing repeatedly. You're the brother I always wanted. You're the brother I never had. You're the
Yep, the screenplay is very
Yeah.
quick to assure us that, hello, my brother, who is a brother to me. Are we not
There's
brothers?
nothing else going on here. Yeah.
Just brotherly love.
Certainly not. So there's Pete, and then we have I guess the others of the four musketeers in here. So we've got Art Baker, and then we have Hank. So how would you all describe Art's role in the book?
I don't remember offhand what Art's role is. Brian, do you recall? Well, you've enough times.
I've read it enough times, and now for some reason my brain always jumbles Art and Abraham together. I don't know why, but I've read the book
They're
many
both really
times.
early in the alphabet. They're numbers 2 and 3.
That might be it. It's just they always end up completely jumbled in my mind, but I'm pretty sure it is not the way he's portrayed in the movie at all.
Yeah, so the things that always stick out to me about Art in the book is that, number one, he's kind of obsessed with death. Like, he describes himself at one point as coming from a death family.
Yes, because they're in the mortuary business, right?
Because they're all in the mortuary business, and he was going to go into the mortuary business if he didn't get accepted for the long walk.
Yes, okay,
But then
now,
at the same
yeah.
time, at the same time, he's also, in the book, I would say that he is the nicest of the bunch. Like, the most purely nice of the walkers. Movie McVrees is a lot nicer
Oh,
than
yeah.
book McVrees.
By several miles.
And
Nicer.
so I felt because of that, like in the movie, they struggled a little bit as to what to do with art. And they gave him a couple of new characteristics, like he's the religious guy now. Like he's the poor Southern boy from a very religious family. And the amazing thing is, I kind of didn't care because, okay, here it comes. I'm going to try not to mangle his name. Tutniot. He is a find.
It's a good performance, too.
David Johnson and Cooper Hoffman are, like, Cooper Hoffman's already kind of a star because of that other movie with the terrible title that he was in. And then David Johnson's clearly an up-and-comer. But I'd never seen this guy in anything before, and he's so good. I think he's actually my favorite performance in the movie.
He is very good in this movie. I don't know if I like him more than David Johnson, but he is very good.
He's got less to do than David Johnson, but the single scene that affected me the most was Baker's death.
Yeah. Oh, that's an emotionally devastating part of it.
And the scene that affected me the second most was Hank's death.
That
Which
scene might have
also
been
was
one
a
that got
very
me the
big
most.
moment for Baker.
Oh, Ben Wong.
That scene is...
Yes, fourth
That
Musketeer
seems
there.
hard. Which Hank... I think Hank's character made it mostly the same on screen as in the book. Not completely. None of them made it.
He's got basically the same
completely the same.
personality.
Yeah.
Like
But
he's
he's cocky, he's arrogant.
and he also tires out really early, despite his cocky arrogance.
And then he just keeps going, despite the fact that he's a dead man walking literally for like half the book.
Oh, and he's the one who knows, he has all the tips memorized, like the manual for the officially U.S. government published manual for the long walk.
Hint number 13.
Which they kept only a handful of those in the film. I have a feeling if there's ever an extended edition of this on a Blu-ray or something, there's probably a lot more of his hints worked in there in the various scenes. Yeah.
That's okay. I think Stephen King only ever came up with like 5 of them anyway, so they'd have to make up most of them, which I'm sure you could.
Yeah, and he's like, just keeps going. He's got like kind of grating but endearing personality at the same time. Like he almost barks everything he says confidently, gets annoyed very easily, but he's
the kind of guy in real life that if you see a friend, you love him unconditionally, and if he's not your friend, you want to strangle him 5 minutes after you meet him.
That tracks.
It's a good performance too. It's I do not know the actor's name
Ben
off the top
Wong,
of my head here.
Ben Wong.
Ben Wong, yes. He was also in the new Karate Kid movie.
And American-Born Chinese, which I think was one of the more, at least around here, one of the more popular of the that's a Disney Plus original, right?
Maybe?
It's
some streaming service original project.
Yeah, that makes sense. With Ke Huy Quan and co. The whole Four Musketeers group, like, just I have almost no notes on the acting of these characters.
This is a well-cast movie, although that could bring us to, and I don't know if I blame the acting more, I think I blame more the writing, but that's Mark Hamill as the Major, who...
So if we could, before we get to him, there was one other actor from the main cast that I considered a real standout, and that was Joshua Ojic as Collie Parker. It's a smaller role than the others, but he ate up the screen every second that he was on it. Like, Collie Parker's kind of an asshole in the book. He's the asshole everybody likes, as opposed to Barkovich, the asshole everybody hates.
We have to mention Charlie Plummer, too. But yeah.
We do have to mention Charlie Plummer as Barkovich. But they made some, like, not even really big changes to Parker's character, but just kind of some changes in the aura that surrounds him, where he's more of a, like, gives no shits, takes no prisoners kind of guy, rather than purely an asshole. And I thought because of the condensing of the characters, that was a really good niche for him to fill. And he has a lot of my favorite little moments, like when he leads everybody in My Darling Clementine.
That's a really fun scene.
Very far into the walk. It is. And we really needed that little pop of enjoyment at that point.
Yeah, they changed his hometown in the movie as well. I can't remember. I think they made him from Sioux Falls
Yeah.
They
instead
made
of
him from Sioux
Joliet.
Falls. He's from Joliet, yeah, in the book.
Yes. Oh, he's definitely from Joliet in the book.
Does somebody else get the?
That part I
Is
wasn't
there
sure
another
on.
character from Sioux Falls in the book? Does somebody have that line about what they have in Maine versus what they have in Sioux Falls?
No, it's Joliet. The lines in the book, it's with Holly Parker, but it's
Okay.
Joliet that he says they don't have smog and
So
not.
in the movie, they very cleverly never mention the state that they're in. It's just that Ray Garrity is the
Oh.
hometown boy. We all assume that it's Maine because it's Stephen King, but it is never
In the book?
mentioned.
Oh, in the movie. Okay.
In the movie.
I was going to
It's
say
mentioned all
like,
over the place in the
Does
book.
the sign
in my
not?
head.
Did the girl's sign not say Main Zone?
Did it?
The girl
I'm
holding
not
the
sure
sign?
that it did.
I thought it
Like it-
did, but I might just be rewriting it from the book in
It
my
flashes
memory.
by in about 0.3 nanoseconds, but at least in the dialogue, nobody ever says the word
Oh.
Maine. As far
And
as the
something
state
else they
goes.
cut was the characters because Ray Garrity's from Maine in the book. The other characters are constantly asking him how far they have to various destinations and what the towns
Yeah.
are coming up and
And
everything.
this starts to annoy him
Yeah,
more and more
yeah.
as they go.
He's the mileage estimator, and they get pissed off when he's slightly off on his
Yeah.
on his mileage.
Yeah.
He
And
still
that's
says
also-
something about seeing his mom in Freeport, but there's so many towns called Freeport
Sure, yeah.
that could be like half the states in the U.S.
And that's also a big part of Cully Parker's character, I guess. At least
Yeah.
dialogue in the book is he is constantly ripping on Ray for how much he hates Maine. Like, I think we get one or two of those in the movie, but there's like half a dozen times in the book that he just points out what a stupid state it is.
Those moments always make me laugh, but I understand why they're cut from the movie.
Yeah, oh, they don't. they're not at
And like,
all
I like
important.
movie Collie. He's not book Collie, but I do like
Joshua
him.
Ojic just has that. I mean, like the charisma of even the asshole things that he is saying that carries through. That I guess you would call big dick energy these days, essentially for that. Just owning the
Pretty
screen.
much, yeah.
As opposed to like Charlie Plummer's way of owning it as Barkovich, which is to be just as increasingly failed, ingratiating, and repulsive as a character can be. And he is much less repulsive in the movie than in the book, I would say. Like, or at least we are given more reasons to sympathize with him, partly through the script and partly through Plummer's performance, I think. Then Barkovich on the page is just like this turd from Satan's asshole just crawled up to the surface of Earth.
Well, he's from Washington, D.C., but, you know, same thing.
Swamp turd from Satan's asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I do like, in both the movie and the book, I do like the scene where Barkovich starts begging Ray, I'm not that bad a guy, begging to be accepted when he knows he's at the end. Yeah, we didn't get nearly as much of him talking about dancing on everyone's graves
No, and in the
as we
movie-
do in the book.
In the
I'm not even sure if
movie,
he said
I
it at
don't
all.
believe he meant to kill that kid. Whereas in the book, I'm convinced he knew that was like
No, because
like,
he did start. Yeah, because when the kid, which just explain it for the people who haven't read and watched the movie, who are, and I don't know the other kid's name,
Rank.
but he
Rank.
baits this Rank. That's right. Yeah, he baits Rank into throwing a punch at him, dodges it a couple of times. He calls his mother a whore who sucks cock on 42nd Street, which tells you kind of how old the movie is, the book is. Because 42nd Street is very nice these days. But eventually, though, the kid misses one of the punches, falls down, and can't get up before his third warning, or after the third warning, he gets shot. In the book, Barkovich is very happy about this. He talks about, is this one more grave he's dancing on? Although he doesn't like when they call him a murderer. But in the movie, he starts yelling at Rank to get up after it happens, before he gets shot. And I do think we're supposed to take from the movie that he didn't intend for it to end with the kid getting shot and killed. He's just
That was
being
how I understood it, too.
He was just being a
Yeah.
dick, not a monster.
And we even see in the movie, in his very first scene, where the kids meet each other on the tarmac and they're sitting and waiting for the walk to start. I think I don't remember what the joke is, but they're all laughing about something, and Barkovich attempts to insert himself into a continuation of the joke, says something that just gets dead silence, like awkward and an inappropriate addition, and you can immediately tell in that moment and in Plummer's performance there, like this is a kid who desperately lonely and unable to relate to people and trying so hard, and when he can't, he falls back on tormenting and like well, okay, he sees that there at least maybe I don't know if it's a way of trying to get respect by talking everybody down or just letting out his rage at everything in life and that. But yeah, I do, as awful as he still is in the movie, I'm empathizing with him from that point on, and then some, and like you were talking about, after he's trying to get in with the group near the end with the Four Musketeers, when it's getting very late in the race and realizing that all of them think of him as a murderer, and he's clearly tormented by the death of that kid, even though many others have died since, and doesn't want to die alone. And he's got this certainty that he's going to, even surrounded by other people, he's going to die, doesn't want to die hated and despised.
I guess in the book it is a little bit more ambiguous when he's begging Ray to like please accept him for who he is, whether he is doing that in any way sincerely or not, or whether it's just like him finding one more way to try to get under Ray's skin. And they basically picked one read on that for the movie.
Yeah.
It's difficult to talk about, like, do we like Barkovich? Because clearly we don't, and also we're not supposed to. There was one very weird moment with him.
Yeah.
Where he starts hitting the side of his head. Were they trying to indicate that he's on the autism spectrum? Because I do not know how I feel about that choice.
That is kind of the impression I got. The social misfit, doesn't make friends well.
He doesn't...
Starts hitting himself. I think you can definitely take that read from it, but I don't think it insists upon that read.
No, because it's the only time he does anything like that, too. It was almost like a weird
he doesn't otherwise
insert.
scan at all as autistic to me in other scenes, and it seemed, like just sort of like more, it seemed more to me maybe about his rage issues, and he's just got like, the self-loathing that he has, and that maybe he is somebody who self-harms in other ways, too, potentially, like...
Yeah, that's another possible way to read it, is that just like he eventually takes his own rage out on himself as well as everybody else. And he does end up doing that in a really dramatic and final way.
Yes, he does.
In his death scene.
And then I guess since we're still talking about the kids, we should probably talk about Garrett Waring, I think is how you pronounce his last name, who played Billy Stebbins. As I said, Stebbins in this movie is very much a composite character of the book character, and a lot of scram put into it. I don't think his performance is bad, but I don't know what they were going for with this version of Stebbins as opposed to the version of the character in the book.
I've watched a lot of publicity material for this movie now, and Garrett Waring seems like a tremendously nice guy. And I think that he probably followed the direction that he was given very well. I do not like this version of Stebbins.
He's not enigmatic enough, I think, is part of it. He either, and I don't know if I can decide which is the problem, is he either talks to the others too much until you lose the mystery of what's this weird kid who doesn't talk to anybody, or he doesn't say enough because you don't ever get his personality until basically the very
I'm
end
the rabbit
of the
speech,
long
which
walk.
I do like. I think he delivers that well.
Yeah.
It's a
I
good
don't
speech.
think the performance is bad at all. And that's, of course, the part that's basically taken straight from the book for Stebbins. But, like, also, and I know part of it is that in the moving to an audio-visual medium instead of a, printed word, you lose a lot of the ability to show Garrity's strange obsession with Stebbins from the start. Because there's no explanation why. Garrity just fixates on him right at the beginning of the walk. In the book, and I know that would be really hard to show in the movie, but it kind of leaves Stebbins as a hollow character. As
Like, it
opposed
would
to
be
an
hard to show,
enigma.
but there are things that you can do, and they'd already been given some of them. Like, the first things that Garrity notices about Stebbins in the first chapter of the book are that he's this really skinny little guy, which let's talk about the opposite of Garrett Waring right there, who, again, they gave him Scram's build.
Yeah, that's where we got Scram, yes.
Yeah, that's where we got Scram in there. And also that he's dressed really weird. He's wearing, like,
Purple
a blue
pants
work
or
shirt
something?
and purple pants and a greens and a like old ratty looking green sweater.
Yeah.
And they ditched basically all of this for he looks like all the other boys, except even better built.
Yeah.
And I
He
think
looks
you could have made him stand out as more of a weirdo at the beginning. Like you've even been given clues as to how to do this. And this is annoying to me because Book Stebbins is just such a delightfully weird, bizarre, absurd character. And I understand not being quite sure what to do with him, but that's exactly why I want to see them tackle him as he's written.
Yeah, it's like one putting so much of Scram, which Scram in the book is the biggest of the boys, and he is the Vegas odds-on favorite at the start of the walk. Which I really want to know how exactly you handicap the long walk, but for that aside, he
I mean,
is
if they
dumb.
take that physical test, then they probably like got the stats for all the boys
That
going
that
in.
could be. But yeah, it's like Scram though is dumb. He's not. He's a very nice guy in the
Is he the
book.
one that's introduced as kind of like the golden boy that everybody assumes will win? Like he's tall, fit, attractive, and seems to. But
Well,
which character is that?
he's tall and fit, but he's also missing his
Oh,
teeth.
okay, different.
He was made the odds-on favorite by Vegas before the walk
Oh, okay.
started. He talks. He's the one who was married in the book, and he
Mm,
tells them about it. Like he had dropped out of school, and he had married his girlfriend Clementine, who was going to
Kathy in the book,
Kathy.
but
Yes, Clementine is
Clementine is
Hank's.
Hank's wife in the
Yes,
movie.
Kathy. That's right. He's married his high school girlfriend Kathy. She is pregnant, to which everyone looks at him like he's a complete dumbass, but he apparently never considered the possibility that
mm.
he wouldn't win. Like at no point did it cross his mind because he was bigger and stronger and could walk forever. And then he's the one
And he even tells them this, like he likes them all, but he's quite
Mm-hmm.
sure he's going to beat them.
yeah, like no hard feelings. I'm just gonna walk until you're dead. Then he's the one who he gets the cold and thinks he at first he thinks it's just allergies.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, as the days go by, it goes from a cold to basically walking pneumonia. But so they took half of his character, the size, the strength, the odds-on favorite, the cold,
Mm.
and put that on Stebbins, who is the small, skinny, very strange, enigmatic character who, at least in the book, he intentionally gets a warning right at the beginning of the long walk, which happens in the movie too. Basically, he tests where the boundaries are, sees how strictly it's enforced. And then it's not until almost at the end of the book before Stebbins gets another warning, even. Well, all of the other kids are constantly walking off warnings, earning warnings. Stebbins goes like days in the book without ever getting another warning. He never seems to get tired until very near the end. And he's just, as Mandy was saying, he's just such a
Mm.
weird character.
And it turns out that he has, this extremely powerful motivation that none of them, certainly not Scram, ever would have guessed, that he reveals in his rabbit speech at the end, which is that he's the Major's illegitimate son. Though I have even wondered about Book Stebbins, like whether or not Garrity is even a reliable, I guess not narrator, but a reliable observer when it comes to Stebbins. Because there are times when Garrity gets a little bit detached from reality himself.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that he's like, making up things that Stebbins says, but I would not be surprised to, metagaming it, learn that Garrity did have some Stebbins-related hallucinations.
And the Stebbins reveal in the rabbit thing being, for listeners who haven't watched or read, that he is the Major's illegitimate son, and has sort of now. Am I transposing this from the book that he was basically approached the Major with this and has had like a private training and selection by him to be the rabbit essentially?
No. He thinks the Major doesn't know, both in the book and the movie. He
Okay.
realizes, and there's no way he's actually finds this out, but he realizes as the walk goes on that the Major knew all along, and he was selected
Okay.
because the Major knew. Because one thing that's not in the movie at all, that's in the book a lot, is that the long walk hadn't made it across the main border in 13 years or something like that? Mandy, you might remember.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it becomes a really big deal when they make it into Massachusetts.
Right.
So then they make it not only into New Hampshire, but also into Massachusetts.
Right. It hadn't made it into Massachusetts in many years. They end up going the furthest in well over a decade. And Stebbins slowly realizes the Major knew all along and put him in it intentionally to try to drive the walk further.
Okay.
But because Stebbins' goal, I guess we didn't really talk about the prize at all at the beginning of this. But because whoever wins the long walk, in the book, the prize is a lot of money plus whatever you want for the rest of your life, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The movie, they explicitly change it to lots of money and one wish.
Which is a good dramatic flair, I think.
I don't mind that change.
Mm-hmm.
That change is fine because, spoiler alert, in the spoiler alert, we're not going to see what happens much after the walk ends anyway.
It is implied strongly in the book and a little bit in the movie that this does not cause the government to go bankrupt because the winning walker is usually not around for very long to keep on claiming that lifelong prize.
But Stebbins' wish, in either form, is he wants to be invited into his father's home, which is absolutely heartbreaking.
I know.
When you combine the two things together, that he wanted to surprise his dad, win the long walk and be like, surprise, I'm your son and I just want to be with you. And his dad is like, surprise, I know, and I just wanted you to make this event be a little more special for everyone watching at home.
And I've got a whole collection of sons all over the country. I don't really care about another random one.
And it's such a poignant moment because you've been given no particular reason to, like, invest in this character. If anything, he's kind of an impediment to the things that you want to happen. And then you get this crushing reveal about him that just makes you want to give him a hug by the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a character, and I agree with Mandy that it's a much better character on page than on screen. But the reveal as you finally get to know him at the end of the book is so good. And it is so hard.
And like you all said, I do think that Garrett Waring did a good job with that speech in particular. Like, even though so much of the build-up to it was missing, it still kind of tugged at my heartstrings a little bit. And that tells me that it's a really good performance.
And speaking of the major, I know you two have big thoughts
we have
on Mark
thoughts
Hamill's
on the major.
casting. Different from my thoughts, but go ahead.
Okay, so I like Mark Hamill, and I don't think his performance is bad in this movie at all. But to me, when you read the book, the Major comes across as the kind of charismatic bastard that when you actually see him, hear him, you can't help but like him. Even when in the back of your mind, you know, this guy's a bad guy. Whereas this movie, he might as well be wearing a sign that says, "Hi, I'm the villain." There is, right from the beginning, the speech he gives to the kids right at the beginning, you not get the sense that he's even pretending to care about them. Whereas in the book, as each kid gets their number at the beginning, he trades a few words with them. Not, long, in-depth conversation. Just, just says something to everybody entering the long walk. I think, pointedly, Stebbins is the only one who doesn't say anything to him. And there's a bit, and this will get into another part of the movie that I really disliked, but there's a bit where Garrity is thinking about how his dad was always opposed to the Major, called him the worst kind of psychopath, a state-sanctioned one. But he had never seen the Major in person. He didn't know what it was like.
Mm-hmm.
Which the movie kind of decided he did see the Major in person,
Sure
but we'll
did.
get to that because I'm going to rant about that scene when we get to it.
I have no defense for that scene. Don't worry. It's a terrible change.
But no, I think Mark Hamill is good at what is on the page. I think they wrote the Major badly in this screenplay.
Yeah.
All right, Mandy, over to you.
Okay, so my feelings about it aren't actually that much different from yours. I think that in the week in the interim, I've kind of warmed on how much I enjoyed watching the performance. Because in the moment, I was just like, who is this asshole who is not the Major that I was expecting? And then I thought about it a little bit. I've kind of landed where Brian did, where I think that Mark Hamill is taking the direction that he was given very well. And he's a good actor at this point. that the writing of the character is bad, and also that it feels like he wandered in from a completely different movie. Because the boys are all giving these very warm, nuanced, grounded performances, and Mark Hamill is basically playing Firelord Ozai again. I was also not a big fan of the change where he's like obsessed with the boys as masculine objects. Like he keeps talking about their big swinging sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did not need this to turn into yet another commentary on toxic masculinity, TM. There is already plenty that is toxic about the Major without them having to bring in something else that was not as big a part of it in the book. So yeah, I do think the performance is fun, though. Like, I can tell that Mark Hamill's having fun, and because of that, I've warmed up to it a little, but I'm still landing basically where Brian is on it.
Okay, maybe we
He played more Joker and less Firelord.
well,
Okay, maybe a little bit.
I would say Joker because he's not a chaos agent, and he's like very much. I get the sense like the things that he's shouting like are actual encouragement in his own warped way. Like I do think the movie character of the Major is somehow more cartoonish, and like I think he's possibly a true believer in all the things he's saying, and like eating all their verbal abuse hurled at him from his position of power, and say that's right, that's the spirit, and all that stuff. I agree. It seems we all kind of come to the same place that I think Mark Hamill is doing everything that I would want him to do with the part that he's been given, and being a fun presence to watch on screen. And I think I had already had my much earlier moment of like when it was first casting was first announced, or when the first trailer came out, I was like, oh, Mark Hamill is not who I would cast in this. In my head, reading the book, I am picturing immediately like either an Ed Harris or a Clancy Brown kind of figure as the Major. Like,
Clancy Brown would have been
perfect. Right.
Oh,
yeah. Still these days. Yeah. That sort of
Push one of Mandy's buttons.
like you can completely buy Clancy Brown as a military junta leader who commands the love and respect
100%. Oh my
of a force, and who can get on TV every year and rally the entire country behind his dulcet tones. Whereas Mark Hamill has his rasping thing going on currently, and does feel like a person who in real life very much could be a military dictator of a totalitarian state, but certainly not of the Julius Caesar variety or whatever, which is what Clancy Brown can deliver for you. He's somebody you would buy, that everybody would feel protected and safe and led by the strength of. Anyway, all of which is say.
And the problem with how cartoonish he is that fundamentally I'm not getting military dictator. I'm getting like Andrew Tate manfluencer.
Yeah.
Which is emphatically not what I want this character to be. Like, I want to be convinced that if I lived in this society, I would probably be following this guy.
Yeah. And like you were saying, about him wandering in from a different movie, because it is very naturalistic performances from basically everybody. Even like Carly Plummer, who has a character who easily could have been a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Isn't.
Which Barkovich kind of is on the page.
Right. Like, you easily could have tipped him in that direction without rewriting the script even at all. So it does make Hamill just stand out in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as somebody who likes Mark Hamill a lot. I think he's a good actor. I think he's an underrated actor. Now that Caleb said Clancy Brown, I'm going to forever wish they cast Clancy Brown in this role. But, so I think that, other than, I know Judy Greer's in this, but she doesn't have a lot to do.
No.
And there's obviously several other boys who also.
She gets to be in the worst scene, and she gets to be in either the worst or the second worst scene in the movie.
Yeah. But, so let's talk about some of the specifics of the movie then. Outside of the cast and characters.
Which are maybe...
You did say earlier that you thought David Johnson could be... Like, do you think he could be a potential Oscar contender, or we just want him to be a potential Oscar contender?
I think he has a shot, but I don't think he's going to get nominated, partially because in proving that alternate indie does not always have our pulse on the sentiment of movie-going public. The Long Walk opened in 4th place in its opening weekend and fell to 5th place in its second weekend. So
I
I don't.
mean,
I think the movie needed to be more successful to have much of a chance at Oscar nominations. Similar to how
Mm.
like Fury Road got a lot of nominations and Furiosa got none because Fury Road made money and Furiosa didn't.
It's kind of surprising because one, it's a Stephen King story, and it is a big year for Stephen King. We've got The Running Man coming up in a few weeks or whatever, so maybe people are holding off. But it was The Long Walk did really well with critics. It did pretty well with audiences on Cinema Score.
but the way that they all described it in their reviews was like it's punishing, it's bleak, it'll make you feel bad, and that's not really
Yeah.
what people who aren't weirdos like us want to go see for their Friday night date nights.
And it's been, do you think it helped or hurt by it having been such a banner year for horror in terms of like almost nonstop horror releases from January till
The
September?
Conjuring Last Rites pretty clearly hurt it, as it became a much bigger hit than I think any of us expected when we did that September preview.
Well, I always expect
And
the
then-
Conjuring movies to be popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is like way bigger than I think anyone like
Oh,
industry.
I haven't kept up.
expectations
What's
and
it up
stuff.
to box? Oh my God.
It's over 400
Oh my
million
God.
worldwide, and yeah, it's made a ton. Plus, none of us even knew at the time that the Demon Slayer movie was going to make all of the money.
True.
But
Like I was
Anyway.
never expecting this one to be a big hit.
no,
was
but
a It was a niche
I thought it
project,
would be
labor
a
of love. from
bigger
the start.
hit than it was. I thought it would have a shot at least second place on opening weekend. But Mandy and I had about a 45-minute text conversation as soon as I got out of the movie. But the first scene that struck me as there was nothing wrong with it, but it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, is on the first night they walk up a steep hill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, you get the feeling that this hill goes forever.
Mhm.
And it is essentially hell on earth. They are in darkness. They're walking up this hill. They can't slow down. People are getting shot all around them. And you get a lot of people shot on the hill in the movie,
Oh, it's a bloodbath.
but it's so quick.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
very Hunger Gamesy.
It's-
It's very Hunger
It's
Games
just a few
cornucopia.
minutes of walking up that hill. Not to get into the slower version of a song here, but the walking up the hill goes very quickly in the movie. And it feels like it's more just, hey, let's get rid of these extra cast members so we can stop paying them now. Unless this is the worst night of the lives of every single kid in this walk.
I really like I know that it's better for, workers' rights that we're not allowed to like pay extras in candy and cigarettes anymore, but there's a little part of me that hopes they would have just like, been able to do something to lure a few more people to the sidelines, but I know we already talked about that. Sorry, Brian, continue.
But yeah, just no, that scene just, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the scene in the movie. It does what it does in the book. It wears everybody out and it thins the ranks of the walkers significantly. But to me, it is the most singularly horrifying scene in at least the first half of the book. Maybe in the whole book. And it's just not in the movie.
I think you're right about the Hunger Games factor and the speeding through these scenes, that the movie is, and maybe just a factor of how much conversation they need to get through in a pretty clip, 108 minutes. It's a little,
Yeah, it's not a long movie.
and I'm glad for that, but it is a little too eager to get past the deaths. Like it shows the deaths like very gruesomely, and we get a couple seconds usually of what it's doing to the other characters.
Yeah.
But we don't get to sit with it to the degree I think we need to, especially for the first few. And like the characters in the movie are sort of forced by the editing to become seemingly jaded to the horrors of getting your ticket punched in a way that I did not feel in the book. And the movie like makes up for that later. Like we really realize they are deeply, deeply fucked and fucked up by everything that's happening around them. But I want the little maybe a little respect from the film to what these deaths mean to the characters is all.
Like, I think the very first death with Curly at the beginning is really well done at showing you, oh fuck,
Yeah.
this is serious. But I do think a lot of them, and I mean, a lot in the book get glossed over too, but there's also double the characters in the book.
And you might not see them all because you hear the gunshot in the distance and you know.
Right. The weird amount of separation that's in the book that doesn't make all that much sense. But I feel like it's that scene in particular is where it bothered me. But I do think there's a lot of, let's get it down to 20 kids now. Okay, let's get it down to 10 kids.
Yeah, as soon as they can.
As opposed to actually telling a story at that point.
I was going to say, you are not going to hear me complain about a movie being kept under 2 hours in the year of our Lord 2025. I think I would have minded the speeding up of the hill less had it been a little more cinematic. And this was one of my running issues with the movie's construction and craft. Like, Francis Lawrence, I think, is a little bit of kind of a yeoman director in that, like, you know, he shows up and does the job that he's been paid to do, and he does it well. But I would be very hard-pressed to describe what a Francis Lawrence movie looks like, beyond just, like, it looks like The Hunger Games, which, okay, cool. But I feel like there were opportunities on the hill, especially, to start showing the characters losing their grip on reality a little bit.
That's all.
And there's so little of that done. We stick to reality so hard, and like their brains are melting away. And you can see the signs of it happening in the exterior. And it would have been nice to occasionally, like, you know, I know at Alternate Ending we love to moan about what if David Lynch directed everything. But I wanted to see a little bit of David Lynch weirdness in here.
I would take the David Lynch version of The Long Walk if that was possible.
Alas.
Alas.
You want to see the movie being a little more playful with the camera, willing to bend reality, and that just seems like such an obvious loss to have the tool of their delirium as given on the page and uncertainty of reality. Like, if you're offered that as a director, why would you ever give that up? If you can show things that aren't necessarily happening or have that ambiguity in the audience's minds, like, go to town.
100%.
Yeah. Go Jacob's Ladder on this.
And that's the thing is, the word hack has a really negative connotation. But what it used to mean when you called the director a hack was he was somebody who would show up, do the job, get it done on time and under budget, and not make any waves. And I think that's who Francis Lawrence is as a director. His movies come in on time, under budget, and they put the script on the screen.
And I will say this for him, there are no points in the movie where I'm like, I think this was directed poorly. There are choices he made that I don't agree with, but there is craft on screen, and I can see everything.
Yeah, that's...
Oh my God, they lit this movie.
They lit the nighttime
scenes. In the dark, you can see what the characters are doing.
What a novelty.
It's a miracle. Praise cinema god.
Almost like people need light to see by, and that light shines on their faces from either the moon or, I don't know, the military spotlights that are pointed on them from...
I don't care where the light is shining from. I just want to be able to see them.
The light comes from the same place the music does.
Speaking of, I wish the music would less. I think if there's like a directorial craft note across this thing, the score is unremarkable except in its intrusion into scenes that would be much more powerful to my mind if they had no score whatsoever.
I needed the score to either shut up or get a lot weirder for most of the movie.
Like
that seems
you could score like if you had 9 Inch Nails thrown at the problem, you could get something really pounding and get the audience in on the tension of it, or
if you went like full Texas Chainsaw Massacre and just ramped up the ambient noise really hard, especially during things like The Hill where the characters are going crazy and you have an opportunity to play with the audience's senses.
Or hell, get the...
Oh, that was not my least favorite scene.
Oh, we know. Also, in terms of how they budgeted their time, like, I know, like, it's a movie, you're adapting a full book, you need to cut things, but we spent, like, 2.5 minutes watching a character shit himself. I feel like we could have spared a little bit of that for...
For The Hill?
For The Hill.
Yes. there's mentioned it briefly earlier, and I think Caleb, you mentioned this in your letterbox that this movie is surprisingly scatological.
Well, so are the Bachman books, to be fair, and Stephen King in
Yes,
general.
there
This is a
is.
preoccupation of
Yeah,
his.
But I
yes, the
love that of
kid
all the
getting
things that
diarrhea.
they. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just saying, the kid getting diarrhea is in the
Mhm.
book, as is the "I'm a once a day man" shitting bit.
Yeah,
Oh, Baker.
great delivery. Well, it's so
From
perfect.
which those are both in the book, and I guess that makes it fair game to put in the movie. But I really did not need to see the kid pull his pants down and shit. I think it was 3 times that we saw him do it. Once would have been enough to get the point across.
Yeah. So first of all, again, like I cannot overemphasize how much I love Tootniot as Art Baker. Every time I read the book from now on, he is going to be that character for me, changes and all. But yeah, I love that after all the things that they were like, okay, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this very major part of the story, but we really got to keep in the parts where everybody takes a shit.
It does imply in both the book and in the movie that those are the only 2 times anybody on the walk takes a shit.
Oh no, it's happening all the time,
Doesn't
right?
Garrity have to at one point?
Yeah.
He might. I don't know.
Yeah, he does. It's described in some pretty
implies.
graphic detail. Thank God they got
The
rid of that one.
The movie definitely implies that that's the only time people take a shit. Because Baker says something about how some people only go once a week. And I'm like, who are these people? We're talking about how he has to every day. And I'm like, who only once a week?
Yeah, right. Yeah, similar reaction.
That is the
But-
exact speech from the book, though, so
It is.
faithful adaptation, I guess.
Yes, it is fair game. I cannot be like, how dare you put this in the movie? But all the things to put in the movie, that was the one.
In
that
addition to
had be
walking,
kept.
Stephen King doesn't know anything about pooping.
I guess
Which
you've
is-
got to
he
answer
must have
the
some
question.
experience.
You got to like at least one line of dialogue and maybe brief shot of the scat to establish for the audience how in the world they're dealing with this logistical problem over the course of the walk. But otherwise, yeah, it's certainly a more prominent theme than it needs to be. But
yeah,
it's a gross, gory movie. It delivers on that. Like
it is.
It does.
There are some gore. There is some gore in some of those
Mhm.
headshots and deaths.
Speaking of shit, do you want to talk about that one other scene, Brian?
Oh, God. Okay. So we have the Major, who it's not completely clear what his role is, if he's actually the ruler of this fascist United States or just the public figurehead of whoever rules
that's what I
it.
assumed. The latter.
But either way,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But either way, he apparently gets on a plane, flies to Maine from wherever the government is, whether it's still in Washington, D.C., or if it's been moved somewhere else, we're never told. But he apparently gets on a plane, flies to Maine, wherever you fly into Maine in. I honestly don't even know where the airports
Bangor,
in Maine are.
probably.
Assuming this is
Bangor.
even still Maine, since they took away that particular detail
Well,
and got cagey about
Then
it.
drives however the fuck far it is to Freeport so he can personally put a gun to the head of one dissident and ask him, will you swear allegiance to your country or should I shoot you in the head?
In a society,
And if this is what the Major is doing, what else does he have time
no,
to do at
because
any point?
we get the sense this
When he
happens
is
all the time, right? Like people are disappearing
If
everywhere.
he's personally killing dissidents,
Either that or Ray
Not even-
Garrity's father was the only dissident in the history of this state.
yeah, that scene took me out of the movie so hard. It pissed me off so much because it makes no sense. And it's just to emphasize that Ray hates the Major. But guess what? The Major is in charge of the squads who took and killed his father or disappeared his father anyway. That's reason enough to hate the
Yeah,
man.
he doesn't need
every
to have
bit
been
as
personally
much.
there. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like I could not believe as that scene was unfolding that they had done this to the movie.
And the movie is...
That is not in the book, just to be clear.
What's also not in the book is what you were saying, the notion of all he has to do is say the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever, briefly, and that's it. Seemingly he will be spared. Maybe he would have killed him anyway. I don't know. But we get what he is told is that he will live if he just does this, but he won't do it. He's not going to back down in front of it. He wants his son to remember, which is such a stupid, pointless gesture as acts of rebellions go, like so deeply stupid and pointless in its abandonment of his family in a way that I don't think the movie is fully willing to grapple with after. I think one character maybe says something to the...
Pete mentions that. Yeah. Pete mentions that he left you or whatever.
Why is that not something that that Ray Garrity is having to...
Just lie to the Major. Say, yes, I pledge allegiance to you. You are my ruler.
Yeah.
And then go back in the house and be more careful with your dissidents.
And again, I hate to be that guy, but in the book, like, Garrity has also lost his father. His father was taken away by the squads. And he regards his father as kind of a loser for this. Because he's like, his dad was an alcoholic and mostly got in trouble for just saying dumb stuff when he was drunk.
Yeah, he'd start ranting about politics when he was drunk.
Which is a more kind of quotidian and sort of interesting picture of what sort of society this is in some ways too, where if you can get drunk and
it's
get
more
killed.
Realistic too. If you live in a society where they kill you for dissidents, most people are smart enough to at least keep that hidden. Unfortunately, they have to. Or do something. Which is usually a futile gesture, but, do something.
Less futile than this.
Beyond just talking. Yes. And I'm not advocating that they should have made Ray's dad a terrorist, but...
But would it have been so bad to just keep Ray's dad a normie who got in trouble for doing dumbass normie stuff?
Yeah, he got yanked out of his house and was never seen again. Because you know what? That's what happens in authoritarian governments. People disappear because they say things that the government doesn't like. But you know who doesn't do it himself? I'm pretty sure Kim Jong-un has never shown up at someone's house personally. Shoots them in the head in front of their wife and kid.
Yeah, no, like Bukharin, after the Bolsheviks, was like Stalin's good friend, and I'm still pretty sure Stalin didn't show up to do the execution personally.
Exactly.
I think Franco did a few early on, but you sort of graduate, right? Like once you've got yourself set up as the head of all the forces, you got to learn to delegate if you're going to be an effective dictator.
You don't need to be Ned Stark and take the heads yourself.
So that was a tremendously dumb scene, and unfortunately it's also a very important one because Ray's big motivator in this version of the story is that his prize, if he wins the walk, is going to be that he takes a gun and kills the Major.
Hate everything with the flashback. Hate the way they how they presented his dad's death and the disappearances. I think the gun wish has potential. If you're in the writer's room and like, we're doing this wish concept. Has anybody ever done this before? Like, people have a lot of pent up reasons to hate the Major. Not everybody worships him. That could work, I think. I don't think it works in this movie. I think what we ultimately get, especially with the big change to surprise the book readers in theaters. Should we say that now since we're talking about that? Which is
do we want to stop dancing around this and talk about the end of the movie?
If I can say one more thing before we get to that, because,
of course.
Like Caleb, I agree with everything that you just said there. I also don't think it quite works because just Cooper Hoffman is not a ragey guy. And I think his performance is outstanding when he is playing Garrity's like niceness and warmth and inherent kindness and like desire to see his friends and his fellow walkers live, even though that is fundamentally against his self-interest. And then he doesn't quite seem to know what he's doing when he talks about how he wants to kill the Major, because that's such a foreign intrusion into this character.
Yeah, which actually,
like, there are characters in the book who are ragey enough that I would absolutely believe that they were going to do that. Like, I'd believe that of Collie Parker in a heartbeat.
Oh, of course.
There's somebody in the book who at one point even yells to all the soldiers, like, my prize is going to be your public castration. So clearly this is on some of the boys' minds. I just don't, like... Again, in the book, Ray kind of doesn't know why he is walking. It was just sort of something he decided to do, and he has to figure that out. And I missed that level of complication.
I'm backtracking a tiny bit because something I just remembered that I wanted to point out is before we get to the very end, near the end of the walk in both the book and the movie, all the kids
Mhm.
make a pact that they won't help each other anymore because we're almost at the end.
Hmm.
And they don't want to
Yeah.
prolong their own misery by helping each other. In the book, that leads directly to Abraham's death because he lost his shirt somewhere along the way. It's night, he's freezing, and nobody will give him a shirt or jacket to wear.
And it's an extra
He
layer of
gets
tragic because the pact was
Mm.
Abraham's idea.
right, which Abraham's not even in the movie. In the movie, they make the pact and then almost immediately break it. And nobody does anything about them breaking it. I'm like, why didn't we just cut it if we're not going to make it
Mhm.
part of the story?
Yeah,
I wanted to
curious
get that
choice
in because
there.
I'd forgotten about I'd wanted to bring that up and I'd forgotten about it until it was like, oh, we're at the end of the movie. I should probably bring up this thing that happens 10 minutes before the end of the movie. But
All right,
anyway,
are we
end
at
of the
the
movie.
end?
We're down to 3 walkers.
Yeah, so we're down to 3 walkers, and it's still Garrity and McFreeze and Stebbins at the end, right?
Yes.
They didn't
Same
change it
three.
so that Baker goes after. Yeah, it's still those three at the end.
Yep.
And Stebbins has his like quiet, dignified little exit that is very different from how the book is. Because in the book, also McFreeze is third place, isn't he? Because it's Garrity and
Yes.
Stebbins at the end.
Yes. And the book, real quick, the book, McVreeze just hits the point where he can't go anymore. He has an emotional farewell. He sits down and dies. Then Ray and Stebbins keep walking for a little while. Garrity realizes, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to tell Stebbins he wins. He slows down. He feels Stebbins grab him. He thinks Stebbins is trying to grab him to like attack him. It's actually the last thing Stebbins does before he falls over dead. And Ray wins, air quotes heavily implied there. And we go into the end, which we'll get to, I think, here in a minute. In the movie, we get the speech about the rabbit, about how it's the major's son, and then Stebbins drops out behind the two of them.
Stebbins
And
basically gets McFreeze's book death.
it's kind of a combination of McVreeze and Scram, because it's the sickness that makes him do it, and they both, Scram and
Mhm.
McVreeze, sit down and die in the book at different points. Scram with one of the two brothers who are also from Arizona. I don't remember their names, but
Joe and Mike.
Joe and Mike, yeah, one of those two sits down with Stebbins or with Scram at the same time. So Stebbins basically does that. He just stops walking and waits and lets them kill him. His organs are failing. He's dying on his feet. And as soon as that happened, I knew they were changing the ending.
Yeah.
I knew, oh,
Hmm.
Ray's not going to win. And so what we get in the movie, and this is the full total spoiler now, is Pete does the same thing where he quits. He sits down to let Ray win. But Ray picks him up and forces him to keep walking. And then Pete starts talking to Ray and doesn't notice that Ray has stopped and sits down and lets Pete win instead.
Wait, you mean the other way around?
Because
Or
Ray lets Pete win. It starts with Pete sits down, Ray goes back and helps him up, and then Ray drops down and sits down to die. Because he's realized that Pete is a better person than him, who always sees the bright side of life, which is a total change in the character.
Yeah, sure
Reads
is.
from the
Sure
book.
is.
But
Movie Pete
Oh, yeah.
is basically a saint.
yes, he's the best person. And so Ray gets shot, and instead of Pete making the wish he said he was going to make, which was something to help people, I don't. Did he ever get into specifics as what his wish was going to be in the
So
movie?
he said two things. Early in the movie, he says that his wish was going to be for there to be two winners of the long walk instead of one, so that
Okay,
somebody
that's
could keep
right.
the friend they made along the way. And then later on, he has a vague notion of like he's gonna. I don't know if it was gonna like he was gonna use the money to help
Yeah,
people
yeah.
or something like that. But his wish was he's gonna do good in the world, basically.
But either way, he doesn't make either of those wishes. Instead, he asks for a carbine. And when the major's like, you'll get one, he's like, no, I want that one right there. And he hands it to him, and he points it at the Major. The Major's like, hold your fire, hold your fire. Tries to talk him down. It goes on for an interminable amount of time of just standing there pointing the gun at him.
Do you really want to do this, son?
Exactly. He then does indeed shoot the Major.
Or does he?
Now, I've seen a lot of people interpret this as a
Yeah,
dream
it could
sequence. Be. I didn't get that at all, but I've seen a lot of other people have. Well, and then after he shoots him, he just turns around and starts walking.
But that's the part that looks so dreamy.
And this is what I did not buy at all, assuming it's not a dream sequence for this. Is I did not believe for 1 second after he pulled the trigger that 8 different soldiers wanted to open fire on him immediately.
You would think, yeah. But they also...
He just killed either the military dictator or the military dictator's figurehead. Either way, he ain't walking out of there alive.
The small crowd almost seems to melt away, including the soldiers, to where I'm... That's what kind of convinced me. And then he looks down the alley of trees before him, and it's sort of like this dark void beyond. And I get the sense that maybe he did shoot the Major, or they killed him immediately. Maybe he didn't shoot him at all. But this is the one place I think the movie is like playing with reality, because the book does, where Garrity keeps walking on after he wins and is seemingly oblivious, maybe even to the fact that he won, and he sees like the Shadow Man ahead of him or something, right? Like possible personification of death.
Yeah, I'm not
possible Randall Flagg.
Yeah, possible Randall Flagg. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. It might be Randall Flagg.
Dude, right?
It might be death. It might just be his. It might just be his brain has broken
and
completely. It's a somewhat ambiguous ending, except for the one very obvious thing in the book is that it sucked. Whatever happens to Ray Garrity after that last page of the book
and
is
in the
bad. There's no other answer.
Oh yeah, there's no happy endings for anybody here. But I think the movie with McVree's, whatever happened with the Major, like that alley of trees sure has the look of walking into death here, in one way or another, or like the continuing the long walk. And it's the closest the movie ever gets to feeling dreamy or reality bending to me. So I think it was trying to be ambiguous about whether the ending happened, but maybe not so successfully, along with...
And yeah, it's a shame that one moment of attempted ambiguity sucked comically huge goat balls.
Yeah.
Here's how much I hated this end. When I was sitting in the theater, throughout this entire sequence, basically from the moment that McVrees asks for the carbine to the last shot, I'm sitting there going, okay, they're going to start the real ending any second now.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is going to have been revealed to be like somebody's nightmare vision, and we're going to see what's really happening one way or the other. Like, maybe it's Ray, maybe it's Pete, but this is definitely not real. Directed by Francis Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there going, what? Like, what did you do? And this is one where I know it probably seems at this point that I just want everything to be exactly like the book, but I don't mind the change from Ray to Pete being the victor, especially in this version of the story, because I do think it makes sense as a redemption arc for this Ray to sacrifice himself so that this person that he loves can win the long walk and make the world a better place. Like, I don't mind that change for the story that they're telling. But I hate so much that then after that, Pete just seems to lose everything about his character that made him the person that Ray wanted to die for. And like, okay, maybe you're going for some bleak thing about how like, oh, he's trapped in the system and he can't change anything anyway and yada yada. Okay, then just give Pete Ray's ending from the book. Just have him keep on walking. Don't let him make the wish. Just have him keep going because his mind is now gone.
Yeah, it feels far too much like we can't have the same ending as the book. The people who read the book know the ending. Like you, I actually was fine with Pete winning. I actually think that in this version of the story, that made a lot of sense. Pete was clearly the better person than Ray Garrity in this movie.
Also, just from a logistical standpoint, there is no way Cooper Hoffman is outwalking David Johnson in an ultramarathon.
This is also true. So I have no problem with that part of the change. It's what happens after he wins that there had to have been a, whether you keep the book ending where he just keeps walking, who's that up in front of me? I'm fine with that. If you go with a semi-happy ending where he makes a wish, I'd be like, huh, that was a weird choice, but okay. This ending, because if it's supposed to be a dream sequence, they really should have set up bending
They
reality
needed
earlier
another
in the
one.
movie
That
when they
can't
had
be the only
yeah,
one.
and there's so many places.
yeah, where they had multiple spots where they could have, shown
Yep.
hallucinations from some of the kids, like, oh, maybe when they were walking up the damn hill.
Even after it became clear that they were switching, it's like, okay, we're switching up who's going to win this thing. I thought for sure it's like, okay, he's gonna ask him his wish. David Johnson is going to move his gaze slowly over and look at the carbine, and then we cut to credits. Like they're not,
and then we cut to directed by
then we
Francis
cut,
Lawrence.
yeah,
I would have been more okay
leave
with that.
leave it
That would've worked a lot
open at the
better.
very least. Not whatever.
Even if it ended with him pointing the gun at the major, I would have been okay with that. I might have been okay with it ending at the moment he pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
It's what happens after when he's not shot and killed immediately that made me go, oh, that's just bullshit.
I don't like the wishing for the carbine at all. I would have been okay with like a quick glance towards it, I think, because that really would have left so many possibilities open. But like, you basically negated half the movie when he wished for the carbine.
Which we didn't talk earlier about Pete's scar, which is a very
That was a choice.
big part of the character in both the movie and the book, and it's one of the biggest changes.
It is.
I can very much understand why they made this one, because the revelation in the book basically, I mean, it makes him out to be both a pathetic and kind of awful figure, right?
Possibly a rapist or attempted rapist.
At the very least, a guy who is so deeply misogynistically insecure that his wife, he's married, right? Or his girlfriend, is it a girlfriend or what?
His girlfriend.
That his girlfriend is doing better at this job together, and that he is doing terribly and holding everybody back there, is a core existential crisis for him that he takes out on her.
Right.
And then she cuts him with a razor across the face
With a letter opener.
Letter opener.
Letter opener, yeah. Yeah, it's like it's the book in this case is ambiguous as to what exactly he did to her the moment before she almost cut his throat out.
And
you can read it a few different ways. The movie decided, no, this is St. Pete McVrees. We can't have that. And again, David Johnson's performance is so good.
And
it's even good in this
And the
scene.
relationship between him and Ray is so good, even if it's been stripped of most of its like
sexual undertones and romantic undertones.
But it's still just like you want them both to be happy so bad, and you know it's not going to happen.
Yeah. But so in the movie,
he
started a fight with the wrong guy.
It was the lamest explanation.
Yeah.
Right. He grew up foster kid, tough kid on the streets, kind of a cliche, but eventually he picked a fight with somebody at like a bar or a restaurant or something. I don't remember exactly. And the guy had a big hunting knife on him and almost killed him. Sliced his face, sliced across like his collarbone and chest. He talks about how it was in the hospital that he started learning to see the bright side of life.
That, like, having that aspect of his character, I think, is great. Like his fundamental ability that he's. There's a little bit of this in the book with some character, right, who's telling Garrity at various points, like, this. Think of we don't have very many moments left. Live in this moment, like beyond the fact that it's just going to make it all go faster, or not faster, rather, beyond the fact that this is going to make it more tolerable. Like, McVrees in the movie is a person who you are really sold on has this gift of appreciating the beauty, the wonder, the worth of every single moment of living, and they want to give him this background story explanation for, and it could have been any near-death experience, honestly, to get them that.
Yeah, it bothered me how generic and lame it was, though, just because the scar in the book is so very specific to the character, and it's also like in the book, Pete's motivation for participating in the long walk is that he wants to die. Like, he is very explicit about this. Like, I am here because I want to die.
Yes.
Like, the prize is...
Doesn't he say he thinks
everybody
wants
there
to die?
wants to die, but he's the one who's, like, really clear about, this is my prolonged punishing myself suicide.
Yeah.
Basically.
So he's a different character, essentially. Like, his
yeah, he's a completely different character.
McFreeze is the opposite of that at his core. Like, he's hope given flesh in this movie, essentially.
Yes. He's in the Andy Dufresne mode, basically.
So if I can steer the conversation a bit to one of Mandy's favorite things in the world is the social commentary of this long walk.
Ugh, bite me.
I know. But I think the novel is pretty undeniably commentary on Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. Which is, one of
Sending
King's
young
favorite
boys
topics.
off to die
The lottery.
for no good reason. Right. The lottery kind of resembles the draft, and I believe one of the characters in the novel mentions the Shirley Jackson story, The Lottery. But I think
Yes.
that's a
right.
very clear and obvious... I don't remember who brings it up, but I think that's a very, very obvious influence, touch point to getting to The Long Walk, which, by the way, anybody listening who has not read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, it's short, it's great, and it will ruin your day.
And also, where were you in early high school in that case?
Yeah, it was not assigned to me in high school.
Oh,
I did
interesting.
not read that until I was an adult. But
Oh, yeah, we did both of those.
Anyway, I was saying something about the social commentary on Vietnam. The random draws done on TV in the book. It very much mimics the idea of the draft. But you know what the book never does? It never goes, "Hi, I'm about Vietnam. Pay attention to me. I'm important."
Does the movie? I don't think it...
Not as much as I was afraid it would. I do think there is some attempts at commenting on the world today. I don't think it's as bad as I was afraid it was going to be about that. Especially because some of the early reviews talk about how it was a movie for our time. I was like,
Oh, I got so scared when I saw those.
does it have to be? Yeah, I think you sent me a message about that.
Yeah, because it's like you
But
said,
yeah, it's like,
if you had never heard of the Vietnam War and you read The Long Walk, the commentary would still be incredibly potent.
and I do think the movie did a good job of not getting too far up its own ass with social commentary.
It's sticking so closely to King's dialogue in large part that there's only a few places, I think, where they stray enough to inject some of that in.
Yeah. I think this may have largely been a case of, like, some critics seeing what they wanted to see. And there are a lot of critics who want every movie to be a movie for our times these days. And so if they liked the movie, then it must have been a movie for our times. But aside from a couple of moments where I was like, okay, Mark Hamill, you're not actually playing Donald Trump, I thought they treaded those waters pretty successfully for the most part.
Yeah, and I do think almost all of that does come from Hamill's performance.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be his performance, the script. The other thing that I find interesting is the novel, I think, basically takes place in your standard not too distant future, like Sunday AD. Like, it's clearly still the 70s, or maybe late 60s. He wrote the book. The book was published in, I believe, 79, but it was written in, like, the late 60s, like 68 or something like that. And I was honestly very surprised to see the movie appears to have kept that time frame. There's no cell phones, the cars are very vintage. The buildings, the businesses that we see them walk by look older, of the style of, mid-century and slightly past mid-century America. I was really surprised because that makes it much more of an alternate history United States than hey, something happened in the late 60s that really changed the country.
Which, it being Stephen King, we can take a few wild guesses at, which are probably mostly related to JFK in some way or another, and the
Yeah.
JFK assassination.
Either JFK's assassination or Randall Flagg. Take your pick.
Both, probably.
Yeah, why not
I think,
both?
yeah, because 11/22/63 ties the JFK assassination into the Dark Tower.
Maybe
so
there was a
it's already
plague in
done.
there as well.
I have not read that book.
Um,
I've read very few of his more, by recent, I'm going to be like the last 20 years. But I've read much more of his 20th century than 21st century output.
Yeah, it's
Same.
possible he has pulled back a little bit on the Vietnam War things since Hearts in Atlantis, which is the most Vietnam War thing that he ever wrote, and is just like a kind of an opus statement on his feelings about it. And
It
yeah,
is it is so funny to me that they adapted Hearts in Atlantis as a movie, and they only adapted one of the stories in it because it's kind of a connected anthology. And the story
Yeah.
that they actually adapted as the movie doesn't have them playing hearts in it. The title makes no sense whatsoever
Oh,
for the movie.
we do these things.
So yeah, I guess are we at this point like thinking big picture in terms of how this movie lands in the realm of Stephen King adaptations, which contain some real highs and real lows, and they're. I don't know if are either of you listeners of the Just King Things podcast by chance?
No.
Any point?
No.
But maybe I should be.
It's a really good show, but they watch the adaptations for everything in the bonus episodes to the main feed. They're reading everything Stephen King ever wrote. They've been doing it for 3-4 years. They're currently up to, they just did 11/22/63. It's kind of a book club thing, but their prevailing theory of Stephen King adaptations, their rule for movies, is that generally, with a few notable exceptions, they believe that the farther a movie strays from and changes Stephen King dialogue, the better ground it's on, because they believe that Stephen King's dialogue is great on the page, but doesn't transfer to films, but his ideas do, and the stories do, and the characters do, and you've got to rework all his idiosyncrasies. But this movie, I think, is probably like, you two have read the book so many times, so you would know. I think it's kind of maybe in the middle of those, right? In terms of it keeps so many direct lines of dialogue, cuts quite a few, changes others, and a lot of the characters are being collapsed. It's doing a lot of those productive moves for adaptation. It's not like what we call slavish adaptation, I think, even if it is a very straightforward one until the changes that we've already talked about.
I do think that
extensively.
I do think that in order to adapt King dialogue successfully to the screen, you need an outstanding cast. Because the Shawshank Redemption is basically the novella translated to the screen with a few little changes. But the dialogue is taken off the page, and it's got an outstanding cast.
Yeah, other than the ending, Shawshank is one of the most faithful King adaptations.
The Green Mile, the same director. It's a very, very faithful adaptation, including with the dialogue, though it gets rid of some of the weirder elements of the dialogue. But again, outstanding cast. And we had an outstanding cast here. So I think really you just need actors who are able to make King's dialogue work for them than against them. In terms of where this fits in among the Stephen King movies that I have seen, I think where this fits in is that, like, aside from like the obvious ones that everybody loves, this one, I think, in my grand ranking goes, like, above The Mist, definitely above Pet Sematary, probably a tiny bit below The Green Mile. I really love The Green Mile, like an unreasonable amount, though.
I'm aware of that. It's like, for me...
Also below Misery, I think.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I would not put this Misery tier.
Both the Kathy Bates King movies are excellent.
I forgot Dolores Claiborne. It's so good.
They are excellent movies.
And extremely unfaithful to the book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I have not read Dolores Claiborne. I did read Misery a long time ago. But I was going to say, the thing I always find interesting is when you look at King's career, he's got a reputation of being somebody whose books are adapted badly. But if you look at the beginning of it, like, you had Carrie, The Shining, movies that are really, really well regarded, except by King himself in one of those two. Like most of the early adaptations of King's books are very well regarded, and then as the 80s wore on and got into the 90s, there just started being, here's the new King movie, here's the new King movie, here's the new King movie. Did you put any timer? No, why would we do that? Here's the new King movie.
There was
Until
also, what was it, 83? Wait, when did he direct is it Maximum
Oh,
Overdrive?
Lord.
Because
I
that,
think
I'm
later
sure
80s than that.
he will
When he was
never
at the height of
never
his
get away.
cocaine habit, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Because
like that movie a lot more
I
than it
do.
deserves.
I think it is objectively the worst film of any Stephen King film adaptation I have seen. Terrible, inept.
You have not seen the
scenes are
Shining
cut right
miniseries
away.
then? Or are we
No,
not
but
counting
also,
that
but
as a film?
I wasn't counting the TV stuff because the
Okay,
TV
fair
stuff
enough.
is a bit. But of the theatrical releases, but it's so fun. Like Stephen King coked out of his mind, attempting to expand his own work to screen. Like that is a good bad movie, or a
This
so bad
machine
it's
just
good
told me to
movie.
go
in my
fuck
mind.
myself.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, I oh, did you have
and
more, Brian, on your
yeah, I was
ranking
gonna
placement?
say, I know I don't like Shawshank nearly as much as Mandy does,
That's hard.
which I do think it has as good a cast, pretty much as good a cast as any King movie, except maybe Dolores Claiborne. This, I definitely would not put this on the level of Carrie, The Shining, Dolores Claiborne, Misery. And it's definitely above things like Pet Cemetery, Silver Bullet, Cujo.
Firestarter.
It
Yeah,
is. You cannot see Firestarter from where the Long Walk is standing on this mountain. I didn't see the remake of Firestarter, but I heard it's not any better.
No, it's mostly a downgrade.
Um, so yeah, I guess I'm saying it's probably slightly above middle of the pack.
Yeah, you know what's funny is that I think I'd actually put it in roughly the same tier as The Running Man, but for completely
Yeah,
different reasons.
That's
Which is one of the least faithful adaptations of any book ever put on screen.
yeah.
It's also
That's
just
exactly
like pure dumb fun in its movie form.
Yes.
It is. That movie is, as long as you don't get upset that it is not an adaptation of The Running Man in
Mhm.
anything but name, that movie's a blast. I mean, it's got Richard Dawson playing an evil game show
Oh,
host.
so
So
good. Speaking
good.
of cast, Richard
What
Dawson and this.
could you possibly want than that out of your dumb 80s action
What is it?
movie?
Get me the Justice Department Entertainment Division? Like,
Yep.
it's just,
Yes, exactly. Which we are getting a new adaptation of the Running. I think you mentioned that earlier in the show. We
Yeah,
are getting a
yeah.
new The Running Man in November, I think, with Glenn Powell, I believe.
Yes, who I'm excited about. Glenn Powell is on a recently for me a meteoric, weird movie star ascension. I think, or I think he's got it.
I like that he puts a interesting sliding scale between. I can't think of the character's name from The Running Man, but the
Ben
book
Richards?
lead character, Ben Richards. Thank you. Book Ben Richards and first movie Ben Richards, because first movie Ben Richards is Arnold Schwarzenegger in his physical prime, when he is roughly the size of a barge.
And extremely not sounding like a guy named Ben Richards.
Ben Richards. Whereas book Ben Richards is asthmatic, possibly has tuberculosis, is scrawny, and can barely, walk without losing his breath. And Glenn Powell is, somewhere in between those two.
Doesn't he like his main thing? The reason he gets arrested is he like refuses to do a my with his men or something.
Oh, in the
They're,
movie,
like,
yes.
to massacre a village.
Have you read the book, The Running Man?
No, I
Yes.
have not read that
Okay. None of that is in the book.
No.
one. Okay.
None of that. He is not a military man. He basically signs up for a reality TV show where they hunt and kill him. But the money will go to his family. For every day he survives, his family gets more money. It's a good book. If you take Rage out, which they have done in the Bachman books collection, is really good, because Roadwork is probably also in my top 5 King books. And Running Man might be in my top 10. I highly recommend reading both of those, as long as you are okay with more bleak, dark, rainy day Stephen King without a conscience.
Who doesn't
Man,
want that?
Pet Cemetery should have been a Bachman book.
Probably.
It's the Bachman
Oh, boy.
books really well.
Ay. Talk about bleak. So I will point out that we have now been talking about this for significantly longer than the actual movie The Long Walk, which means that we should probably bring this to a close.
Yeah.
Caleb, did we get where this kind of fits into your tiers? Or
So The Running Man was the second movie I thought of. The first one I thought of just because it was a few months ago was The Monkey, which, like The Running Man, goes the opposite direction into let's make this a bonkers, balls to the wall, like how crazy, especially when you're adapting The Monkey, which is like a 10, 12 page short story into a feature film. The answer is let's make it a really goofy Final Destination come Twilight Zone episode thing. Oz Perkins going at it, which I found mostly very fun and delightful. Like it's bad in a lot of ways. It's not like like the story is bad, but the movie is aware of it in a way that is not obnoxious. It's aware of it in a movie that is having fun with the concept, much like the latest Final Destination Bloodlines was. I thought it's a really good year for horror movies where Rube Goldberg reality fate kills people in gruesome ways, which is like the entirety of The Monkey. Starting with it sounds like neither of you have seen it yet.
I haven't.
So I guess like this, the best thing I can say for getting you to watch it is that the first scene is oh God, what? Sorry, I'm blanking now. What's his name from Severance and from
Adam Scott?
Yes, Adam Scott. As who's the father, like running into the store from the beginning of Gremlins, like in New York, coming in with this cursed object, doing reverse Gremlins, trying to sell it to the pawn shop owner essentially, and as the monkey then activates and the Rube Goldberg murders begin, and everything in that store from the Gremlins proceeds to become a murderous impossibility together, Final Destinationing their way to unbelievable gruesome brutality, but played for the laughs by and large. It is a very like James Wan at his peak kind of movie. I'm going to continue my theme of not remembering things, but what was the James Wan conjoined twin one from the other year?
Malignant.
I'm
really glad you brought that up. I did want to. Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
My thought is this: if you're in the Malignant mindset, The Monkey, it will probably give you. It's not as good as Malignant, but it'll give you that fix with the adjusted expectation that they're doing what they can with a Stephen King story that should not be a feature film, and Oz Perkins giving it his best.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up though, because it was something I looked up and was going to bring up at the beginning of this podcast and forgot. The last spoiler alert podcast on Alternate Ending was a Patreon exclusive spoiler alert of Malignant in 2021.
Wow. Oh, wow.
It has been almost exactly 4 years. It was in September.
Wow. All right.
And we have brought it back.
Fantastic. Well done, everybody. And on that note, if you are somehow still with us at the end of the long talk, which I assume we're just going to call it that when it comes out
Absolutely.
on the website, then you are the type of person that if you haven't already done so, might be interested in subscribing to the site on Patreon so that you can enjoy much more of this type of ridiculous long-form content. All right. Have a good night, everybody.